Hey, what's going on, everyone? A full count. I'm here with my brother-in-law. He's a sports enthusiast, and he's also a breaker. His name is Sonny, and we're in Blue Ridge, Georgia. As you can see, the phenomenal views with the mountains behind us, and we're going to have some drinks today.
Yeah, buddy. I want to say Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, all the above to everybody out there, and thank you, Andrew, for having me on the show.
Yeah, man.
3 balls, 2 strikes, pressure is on. This is where we discuss real estate, property improvement, and business. Together, we'll strategize on how to win. Welcome to Full Count.
Okay, so full count, we're about baseball, business, overall, real estate as well. But today we're going to switch it up because it's the new year. We want to switch it up. We don't want it to be the same. We want to have some fun today. So we don't have to talk so much about business or real estate, but just anything related to baseball or sports. So with that said, Sonny, I know you make a business out of this. If you could just explain exactly what you do. And then as soon as you're done doing that, we're going to light up some cigars.
Fair enough. All right. Well, naturally, I'm a hobby enthusiast. Sports as a realm, I enjoy obviously baseball,
Right?
More so football, basketball. In terms of the value of everything, I've turned something that was initially a hobby into a business, and with that being said, the value of these things, can be small, it could be large. You can finance your house, or it can just simply be a PC hobby. So,
right.
The realm of possibility within this market is pretty crazy. Very high ceilings, very low floors, but it is very addicting at the end of the day.
Is it?
Yes, very much so.
Is it the fact of like landing something big that's just overall has to do with the player or the team, or is it more on the financial aspect?
I mean, both. Within the hobby itself, you have people that are able to, gamble, so to speak.
Right.
They jump into breaks, or they buy boxes for just the thrill of it all.
Right.
Then you have people that are necessarily like professionals within the hobby, whether it be on my end of breaking or another person's end of collecting. Again, that could be PC related, or that can be just for the sheer, possibility of flipping something long term. You could keep it long term,
right,
and it has value long term, say a rookie card, or a veteran card that you might be able to flip the very next day. There are cards on the market that were bought, at the peak of things being in COVID, when people had more money. Obviously, the COVID money.
Everything, financially, the market was housing, stocks.
So, there are cards that sold in that time frame that the value tripled almost. With the market coming down and things becoming more realistic and hitting a plateau, so to speak. Right. That same card cuts in half. There's like LeBron cards.
How much was that going for in 2020 and 21? In general,
there was I saw a tidbit on Facebook actually where there was a card that sold for like almost $500,000 back then, and it's down to like $100,000.
No way.
And I wish I had saved that just to kind of show up on this post, obviously, but.
So it's
pretty crazy.
It's kind of correlated to everything else in the market, economy.
Exactly. Sort of. Yeah. Naturally, everything comes to how much money is in your pocket, what you're willing to spend, right?
Right.
I think that can be put both for the housing market and the card market for sure. Cars the same.
Right.
Whatever's collectible. People collect shoes. People collect watches. What are you willing to spend?
Yeah. I think I always mention to clients that it's always good to look into like you were saying, watches, Rolex, see what the value is in that. And then also, especially the ones that are, pre-owned. Yeah. And then you also look at things like stocks, right? Okay. And that'll kind of give you an understanding if they're peaking or if they're going really high up. Home prices overall are probably going to do the same thing. If you start seeing them tail off, home prices may tail off a little bit. Yeah. It's not 100% correlated, but a little bit. Yeah. Do you think it's the same with like this type of industry a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll show a card here shortly.
Yeah.
That, I can kind of show that change in for sure.
Right.
It's all about how long you hold on to something, rather.
Right.
In theory, if I wasn't keeping that card long term or just wanting to maintain it within my own personal collection, I should have gotten rid of it at the height of it. But again, you hold on to things with the mindset, it's going to keep climbing. It's going to keep climbing. The value is going to be there.
That's where the gambling aspect comes in, right?
Yeah, exactly. And not to say that the value won't climb back again. Based on the way the economy goes, right, or the market, whatever. But again, there's definitely a correlation there for sure.
You said it's a good way also, and when the market's good, obviously. And you gave an example to finance your house. Did you by chance do that a little bit?
I definitely had
some down payment money.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not going to lie about that. So there are items that I should have sold at the height of it. I had a couple Tom Brady helmets that when I initially hit them, my investment short term was very minimal.
Right.
So I mean, no matter what, I was in a profit. But selling it for 3,000 versus 8,000, I mean, that hurts.
Right.
I could have sold it for $8,000 on the
Got a little
spot.
caught up.
Yeah. I mean, again, you not necessarily are always inclined to sell something. Sometimes you hit it and you're like, okay, I want to keep this for a little bit, kind of relish in it,
Right.
Especially from a brake standpoint. Obviously, again, I'm a breaker. It's a business by trade, but I'm also a hobby enthusiast.
Explain what a breaker is for the audience.
Well, I mean, it depends on what product you're looking at. There are helmets, there are cards, there's jerseys, it's game used material. But I mean, for the sake of the podcast here, let's stick to what I, kind of strive in, and that's helmets. And initially, I started off with cards, but say you have a product of cards, whether that be on the retail side or the hobby side. I'll use my example of retail mainly because that's how I started. I walk into a Walmart or Target, maybe not nowadays because you can't find it, but back then,
yeah, I remember you told me during that time,
you could
2020,
find retail
21.
products easily.
Mm-hmm.
I'd walk into a Walmart, maybe I had 3 in my surrounding area. I'd drive around for an hour. I'd come back with 20, 30 boxes. And at that point in time, before Walmart and Target kind of got their hands into things, you could buy a box for $15, $20.
Wow.
You package those 5 boxes together, and you advertise it as a break. You're selling divisions. Football as an example, there's 8 divisions. There's 8 spots to purchase. You set a value for those spots. An individual or a member within my page would buy that spot, and then at that point, once it's filled, they would randomize. Everybody gets a division, and then I start opening the boxes. Whatever card comes out, team specific to that division, whoever has it wins that. So an example would be, I hit a couple Joe Burrow cards. So Burrow being in the AFC North, rather, whoever had that division, hit big at that time. Maybe not now, but he's still up and coming, but he's injured. But ultimately, it's all a gamble.
So no, for sure. But does that require someone that wants to get into your industry? Maybe they don't want to be a breaker per se. And thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
But someone that like myself that wants to jump in, I only pay attention to baseball, right? Full count baseball terminology. But if I want to get into, say, the NFL, buying cards or helmets, would that require me technically to get into the space of like actually watching the games, looking at stats?
Yeah, I mean, I think you would want to be a little more knowledgeable of what you're buying. I mean, as somebody that's a fan of football,
right.
I'm not quite sure which team you follow, but the Rams,
Rams, because they're in LA, they're close to Orange County.
So,
and they're in LA.
I mean, if you want to stick to your team and your PC, then it might not take as much involvement, depending upon if you want modern day players or older, Hall of Famers. But I mean, if you really want to grasp a little bit more knowledge, then it would definitely be beneficial to do a little research. Pay attention to the games on Sundays, kind of know, necessarily who's up and coming from a rookie standpoint. Veteran standpoint, who might walk away with an MVP or a Super Bowl that year. I mean, that definitely dictates value long term.
Do you think a lot of people that watch football, not a lot, but do you think there's like at least a 5-10% amount of people that watch the sport that are involved in what you do?
Oh, easily. Yeah.
Or more, maybe?
I would think more.
Really?
I mean,
I thought maybe a little less.
No, yeah. I mean, it's not just breaking, though. I mean, again,
well, look, someone like myself that wants to get involved and talk to you and buy something from you, like that whole economy.
I think it's up and coming more than anything.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
you think they're going to be the next cryptocurrency guys, like the multimillionaires?
Absolutely.
Do what you do?
You're
no way. For real?
Yeah, you could buy shares and like share a card, like just the same concept as shoes. There are people that, vintage Jordans, they'll buy a 10% share in that shoe. It'll be locked away in like an air conditioned vault. The same concept with cars. There are people that are buying a share into a card. They own a percentage of it, and they're again trying long term to grasp the amount of value that it could bring to them. So again, pay your house off, pay your mortgage, buy you a couple cards, pay for your kids' tuition for college. It just depends on how much money you're willing to spend and how lucky you could be.
So let's just say, I mean, right now we're at the end of December, about to be the new year. Going into Q1, Q2 of 2024, do you think the market is it's definitely not at the peak anymore.
No,
but do you think it's at a point where it might be smart to consider going in, or maybe wait till the end of 2024?
Well, the way that you want to, specifically football, I mean, product comes and goes on a year-to-year basis. I mean, there's different brands, sub-brands within the brand. Panini was just bought out by Fanatics, so I mean, that's definitely going to change the game. They kind of monopolize it a little bit, but the draft class within the NFL really dictates what happens with the future of products. So this draft class coming, I mean, there's a lot of hot rookies that are going to be coming, especially from a quarterback standpoint. And I think from an NFL brand, your rookie quarterbacks really dictate the product cost. Recently, the 2023, I mean, some of the rookies started off kind of rough. Now we have a better chance. You have an example would be like CJ Stroud at the Texans. He was a front runner possibly for rookie of the year. He got injured. Things change. But this upcoming year, there's a lot of rookie quarterbacks, and that's definitely going to dictate the value of the card or even the released cost of the product. Panini might jack it up, or Fanatics in this chance might increase the cost of that box because they know the players coming out are going to have increased value or desire.
Do you have like a top 2 right now that you can think of the rookies in the NFL?
I mean, just thinking of the top 5 draft picks from a quarterback perspective. I mean, you got Drake May, obviously. I mean, you got the quarterback from USC. I think it's Caleb Williams. I mean, those would be 2 of the top tier ultimately for sure.
Right.
From a wide receiver perspective, I mean, you got Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously, his dad, well-known Hall of Famer. So, I mean, that he's got the namesake, so to speak, but he should be a top 5 pick easily. So, I mean, the draft is the draft. Things happen. Teams trade up, trade down, players fall. But, I mean, those 3 players alone, from a long-term investment standpoint, in theory, they should be drafted to teams where they're day one starters.
Right.
That's part of the problem with the hobby as well. You might have a quarterback or a player that may or may not start day one. They could get injured right off the bat, and then the value of that player just
that
declines.
Sucks. So it to me, it sounds like it's a bit of a volatile market then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, there are players you invest in, and long term they'll maintain value. Those players, from an NFL perspective, obviously the GOAT, Tom Brady. I mean, whatever you buy on his end of things, it might fluctuate, up and down, but there's still going to be, that namesake that people are going to be desiring. So, I mean, from NBA standpoint, obviously you got MJ, you got Kobe. I mean, LeBron. Everybody likes to hate on him, but
I kind of hate on him.
I mean,
I'm not a huge LeBron fan.
I'm a huge LeBron fan.
Even though I'm a Laker, you are.
Yeah.
I'm a Laker fan
from high school. So
I'm a Laker fan, but ever since he got in, kind of not been about the Lakers.
I mean, you got to have somebody to talk about, whether it's good or
that's
bad.
True. I mean, that's your industry too, so you kind of want that excitement to keep flourishing.
It's going to be hard when he ends up retiring. What the NBA
and we gotta. There's a basketball player we're not going to talk about right now, but we're going to show the card of a particular person that might equate to, the excitement of a LeBron type once LeBron's gone.
Absolutely.
So it sounds to me then that overall, when it comes to I asked you about, is it a good idea to maybe consider jumping into this early 2024? It sounds like it's more about the seasonality of it versus the time of year, maybe.
Again, and sports, they're year round. I mean, certain sports they last longer. Baseball and hockey, long term, have longer seasons. Football, while it is short term, I mean, it has a quick turnaround. I mean, you got training camp, you got the draft. So I mean, there's always something going on within the sport that kind of piques your interest. There's only maybe a 2-month lull during the summer where you're like, I don't know. And that's when you kind of see things, from an up and down standpoint, they go down. But there's a way to look at that because ultimately that's the time to buy.
Right.
Value goes down. It's not necessarily value, but it's more or less interest goes down a little bit. So with interest going down, value goes down.
Is that maybe the time to jump in?
If you're a buyer, yes. If you're a seller, no. I mean, if you have product on hand and you're wanting to sell it, that's the worst time to get in. But as a buyer, you stock up, from a breaker standpoint, during those times we try to gain inventory, not necessarily take advantage of people because, that's definitely what we're not about.
Right.
What kind of separates us uniquely
ethically,
from other breakers. I mean, we're all about, contributing and, from a hobby perspective, it should be shared value. We're not going to downplay anybody. We're not going to say, okay, you have $1,000 helmet, let me give you $500. There are a lot of people in the hobby that do that.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're about. So we like to maintain value, and that's part of the hobby issue right now is the value's down because it's become more of a gambling scenario than a true hobby enthusiast scenario. So it started off like that for me. Again, me coming into the hobby, I was somewhat new. Obviously, I'm a huge sports fan. I've always been, but I can credit my cousin Josh over there for getting me involved in this. It's a different story for another day, maybe. But coming into this, it's exciting. I mean. You buy a box, you might skunk, but you might buy a box and you walk away with 5 times value. So
I'm glad you mentioned that though, but about it being there's opportunities for buyers and sellers, and sounds similar to real estate because I always mention to people buying during the holiday, like right now, like you and I are doing this.
Mhm.
We have family together here in the cabin.
Yeah.
Majority of people in the U.S. are kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Their mind is not into buying or selling anything right now,
Mhm.
for the most part.
Yeah.
And in real estate, prices, you can probably get a price for a little bit lower than during the season of where everyone's buying. So
Yeah.
I always tell people, if you're looking to buy between, Thanksgiving time to like the first 2 weeks of January.
Yeah.
But don't sell during that time.
No, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So it's kind of similar to this
It
industry.
is. I mean,
Sort of.
from a buyer standpoint, I can see that. It goes both ways though, because I mean, the holidays from our industry are a little different, obviously,
Right.
because people have Christmas, and that might be if you have inventory on hand that is in excess that you're willing to part with, and you don't need to make a profit. It's the perfect time to get rid of it. Me, for example, I obviously have a community that I live within that have tons of sports enthusiasts, and I was able to get some of my friends, their families, a couple items that hopefully stay in their PC. They can give down to their kids ultimately a long time, but it depends. It depends on your perspective on the market and the hobby and what you want to get your fingers in. So I like a little bit of it all. Myself, I play in the breaks. I collect on my own things. I'm a breaker, obviously, as well. I flip things naturally, so I can have a little bit extra cash to go into another break.
Right.
I like to spread the wealth. Everybody should get a little piece of the pie, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's a perfect opportunity to light a cigar.
Let's get it.
Let's do it. You want to do the honors? You're the guest, so.
Oh no, man, you go first.
No. You're the guest.
Oh,
You're the
shit.
brother-in-law, so you gotta light it up first. What do you got, anyways?
I don't even know. I just grabbed one random. Grabbed a few from the stash there. I don't know that they're anything special. Paulina. It's a classic.
Paulina. I got a Romeo Julieta.
Oh, that's a decent one.
1875.
Yeah, I don't even remember what I grabbed, to be honest.
So we're both cigar smokers, which is always nice, right? I think it's
Absolutely.
I don't know. I think it's like maybe once a month, every other month.
It's something to bond over.
Yeah.
Same thing as the whiskey here.
Yeah. So what are we drinking today?
Ooh, I'll let
We
you
got-
show that off. One of my all-time favorites here. We got Jack Daniels, the Sinatra version.
Yeah.
If you're
check that out.
an enthusiast, you'll know what that is.
And this is some good stuff. And I feel like we've almost finished it.
Oh yeah, flaking off here. Flaking off big time. Temperature control, not on par.
It's all good. That's why we got the drinks. I mean, the cigar is just a plus. The drinks is the must. Thank you.
Mhm.
It's too bad my co-host couldn't be here today, physically or on the pod, but it's okay.
He's here in spirit. That's all.
So my buddy Chris Hensley, the Navy guy, as everyone has seen him before.
Mhm.
He would be smoking one with us.
Oh yeah,
Well, Nick, I don't think would.
probably not. No.
He's very healthy conscious.
Yeah, he might be over there in the corner watching the smoke. To be honest. Love you, Nick.
And then, now that I think of it, I think we'd have to have two cameras right now because he'd be on the corner over there.
Yeah.
This is good. You need more? Good.
I'm good for now. Couple pops.
Okay. I'll flake a little too.
This little tray worked out kind of good though. Man, you can kind of see your breath too. It's a little cold up here, guys. A little
It's cold. I think it was 30,
It was 33
something.
when I woke up.
But it might be colder now. It feels colder.
Yeah. It's nice though. I thrive in the cold, man.
Yeah, I know. You're not wearing sandals today, though. So he normally wears sandals no matter the temperature, but today it looks like he's wearing some shoes.
And I don't want to be made fun of on the camera here. At least you can't see my feet, so you would have never known. I have socks.
Sorry, I
on,
called
too.
you out.
That's all good. Hey, I from up north, but I grew up essentially down in Florida, so and the best of both worlds.
Right.
If Florida could have a seasonal change, maybe a week of snow, it would truly be paradise.
I don't think that'll happen.
Obviously not.
Yeah.
With technology, who knows? Maybe we'll control the climate one day.
I mean, they say the government
Yeah.
controls climate,
A lot of
supposedly.
theories out
I don't
there,
think it's
right?
true, but it could be. Let us know what you think. Maybe you should comment below and let us know if you believe that or not,
Yeah,
that conspiracy.
It's an interesting take on things for sure.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. So, good. Let's talk about cards. Maybe what we can talk about is as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, about the maybe not the equivalent basketball player to LeBron, but sort of similar to him.
Yeah, I mean, coming out of high school, LeBron, there's not many players that can say they skipped college.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily a fan of it. I definitely think that from a character perspective, and coming out of high school, you're very young, very naive. The one thing that we can say about LeBron is, he's never gotten in trouble. He's not like other players.
That's true.
I'm not going to name names here, obviously.
You mean like by the law?
Yeah, I mean, he's all about community, all about family. He's never been accused of anything, lawfully at least.
I think I've heard something about his school not being the best, but at least he attempted. Whether that is true or not.
Like his high school? I mean, he bounced around from,
No. His high school, he started or...
Mm.
Right. Is that what you're talking about?
Kind of. I mean, there's documentaries about it all, obviously now. But, the one thing that I can say...
Are there really?
Yeah, they have, there's a whole Netflix series on it.
Oh, I got to watch it. I haven't watched it.
So there's a couple for sure about LeBron. I mean,
but you
in
like
my
him.
mind, LeBron's the GOAT. We can argue and maybe...
I think he is. You think he's better than Michael?
Absolutely.
Kobe?
Yes.
Statistically, I hear the same thing.
Yeah, I mean...
As a character, I don't think I like him. I think Michael's better. You know why? Can I tell you why?
Yeah.
Michael said he sells Nikes to Republicans and Democrats.
Okay.
LeBron doesn't care, which in a way I respect because he's got that courage to say whatever the hell he wants.
The way that I look at sports and the way that I look at, role models in life, I try to keep politics out of it for the pure joy of it. From
Smart move.
That's a lot of people have issues with
smart.
LeBron, not because of his gameplay, but because of what he
necessarily
says or, his viewpoints on things. I just want to watch him play basketball. And if I could do that for another 5 years, man, it's going to be great.
I think you'll have that.
Yeah. I mean, he wants to play with his son, and that's admirable, obviously. I mean, who wouldn't want to? If your kid's that good. But
isn't his son in UCLA or USC?
USC, yeah.
Is he almost going to go to NBA, you think?
I mean, he's a prospect. I mean, he's going to be a top draft pick.
So LeBron, his son's at USC. He wants to end up playing with him. That is admirable. I like that.
Yeah.
He's a good dad in a way. I mean, not in a way, for sure.
He's a great dad.
Yeah.
Great family man, for
Good
sure.
dad, for
Very
sure.
honorable. Something that we can all strive to be, for sure. That's why I like LeBron. I think.
But you like to see it from the perspective of sports only.
Yeah, it's like from a fan base. I try to keep as much.
But doesn't he bring in politics all the time in conversation? That's what I do not like.
Correct.
Derek Jeter, the baseball player, retired.
Mm-hmm.
He does not ever talk about that. He sticks to sports only,
and that's a personal choice. That's
right
because he doesn't want the negativity probably surrounding his opinion on things. Whereas LeBron's like, it doesn't matter to me. Like, you can hate me, you can love me. I'm still LeBron James, and I'm still going to be ultimately long-term a top 5 player. In my mind, still the GOAT. But he wins another championship, specifically with the Lakers. I think it's over.
It's over.
Yeah,
he did it.
Yeah. I mean, what player can say?
Asked?
No, I mean. There's never going to be a player of his physicality, the IQ on the floor. He can do everything you need him to.
I don't know about never.
I don't think there ever will be.
You don't
There'll
think so?
There'll never be another player that is as physical as him, that has the ability to shoot the three. We can all, laugh at him for the playoffs last year and, missing however many he missed in that span. But, ultimately, he can play every position on the floor. He can guard every position on the floor. He can be a point guard and run the offense. He can be a power forward. He can, do whatever he needs to do to help his team win. Obviously he's regressed a bit physically, but no player in the NBA is going to guard LeBron coming down the hole and trying to dunk him. Nobody wants any of that. Still, at whatever age he is now.
So I agree with that, but at the same time, everybody thought Babe Ruth was going to be the GOAT forever. It looks like Shohei Ohtani, the now Dodger, might take over.
Yeah.
So maybe in 50 years, when we're
I'm not saying
men,
there's not going to be another GOAT. I'm saying there's not going to be another player of his caliber that is as physical, is a freak of nature, so to speak, physically, that can also pass, shoot, have the smarts and intelligence on the floor. He's a GM. He's a coach. He does whatever he can to help his team. And no matter what, in my mind, he's always going to be the best player on the floor. in his prime, you can't argue that at all. That year that he took Miami through the playoffs, that was a scary man. He single-handedly took down the Celtics. I mean, the look that he
So you
had
love the guy.
is iconic. Yeah.
Let's talk about the guy that might
my second favorite player.
Yeah. Let's show that card.
All right.
And if you can break down the card a little bit.
Yeah.
Because today we're going to be talking about this because this is what you do with breaks.
Of course.
You're a breaker. And it's like freezing out here.
Yeah, my hands are shaking a bit, so I apologize for the camera view here. But, love him or hate him, everybody has their own view on things. Everybody's a fan, ultimately, of the sport, whether it's your own team or just an overall fan. Again, I'm a LeBron fan. I followed him from high school to the Cavs, to the Heat, and now with the Lakers. So you can call me bandwagon all you want, but again, I'm a LeBron fan. So, whether that means I follow him throughout his career and he swaps teams, that is what it is.
Wait. So you're saying it's okay to – I want everyone to hear this. You're saying it's okay to have a favorite player. He was at Miami Heat at one point, Cleveland before. So him jumping and being traded to new teams, it's okay to now root for that team?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's different when the
term, Can I tell you why I bring it up? And then I want to. So there's I'm an Angels fan, right, and a Yankee fan. I know that's weird, but whatever.
That is a weird thing.
Forget about that. I've explained before. If you don't know why, go look at other podcasts. But basically, I like the Angels. Shohei Ohtani was at the Angels. Mm-hmm. He's now at the Dodgers.
It's crazy, but yeah,
isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
$700 million contract. So he's with the Dodgers now, but I'm still an Angel fan. I've always liked Shohei Ohtani, but I've never had him as a favorite.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon of being a Dodger fan because I've always been an Angel fan.
Yeah.
However, I've always kind of liked Tyler Glasnow, the pitcher. So I was never a Rays fan, but I was like, it's fine. He's a cool pitcher. Mm-hmm. I mean, I like him a lot. Now he's on the Dodgers.
Okay.
So now because he's on the Dodgers, I might consider – actually, I shouldn't say might – I definitely do want to root for the Dodgers now because my favorite players.
I don't think there's a problem with that at all. I mean, if you
so there's a guy named Bahi at my office.
Okay,
he's a big Dodger fan. Yeah. He doesn't think you can do that. He's a realtor.
Why. I mean, the realm of sports gives you the opportunity to like a player, like a team, like a city, like a state, whatever you want. I mean, Florida has 3 football teams in it. If you're purely like just Florida run and you're Florida, by nature and it runs through your blood, why can't you root for all 3 teams? There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, from a football standpoint, unfortunately, a Washington Commanders fan, that's a controversy in itself. But, I have a backup team because naturally my team is just, it always lets me down. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with having multiple teams that you root for, whether that be so you have long-term a team you can say, okay, they have a playoff chance and a Super Bowl chance, and I want to maintain being able to watch football.
Right.
But I think it gets different when it comes to baseball and basketball because of the way that these players get bounced around. It's a business ultimately.
Okay.
And I think the players, the way that they are handling themselves, some good, some bad. I don't like the idea of, I'm not happy with my contract or, I'm not happy with my team, trade me, and the holdouts and all that. I think that's horrible. I don't, you sign a contract, in my mind, I mean, you'd be a man and honor it, Unfortunately, with sports, though, there's injuries,
right.
There's the ability to, if you're really truly wanting to make a difference in the sport and long term, like have your name engraved in the sport itself, then obviously you want to succeed. You don't want to be on a team that's, on the losing end of things long term. But
right.
So for LeBron example, he's a GOAT. Again, we're going to keep saying that, but I don't have a problem with him bouncing around from team to team. Some people say he's chasing rings, but his biggest argument is, he hasn't won as many as
he should have
as MJ, and that's the biggest argument right now.
That's
but MJ hasn't even won the most.
Yeah.
So it's like the GOAT conversation. It's all over the place. You have older players that grew up watching MJ that are like, yes, he's the GOAT. I grew up watching him. I don't like basketball nowadays, and they think that it's a prima donna sport. There's people flopping everywhere. Mm-hmm. LeBron would never survive in, back then in MJ's era when you had whether the Bad Boy Pistons or whatever. He wouldn't do that. I'm like, again, he's a freak of nature. He's grown up and evolved in the sport the way it is now, where everybody flops. He might do it more, but this man doesn't get the calls he should. He's driving in the paint, and he gets fouled 3 or 4 times before he makes it to the rim, and he doesn't get the call. But because the foul isn't so significant that it doesn't deter his path to the hoop, the refs are like, okay, it's not that big of a deal. That doesn't change the fact that he's been fouled.
Yeah.
But
So you're like one of the biggest sports enthusiasts I've ever met.
okay.
And the fact that you're saying this is pretty amazing. Because I've heard other people say you can't root for other teams when your favorite player gets traded.
I think that's juvenile.
It's juvenile.
Yeah.
Okay. Whoever has disagreed with me in the past, there you go. You heard it from a true sports enthusiast that makes it.
If you're a fan of a player,
living out of this,
there's no problem being a fan of a team because the player's on the team.
Okay.
If naturally sports people, you buy a hat, you buy a jersey, you buy something from that player or that team. So if my player, LeBron in this case, goes from the Cavs to the Heat, would I not want to buy a Heat jersey and become a fan?
So if you guys agree with us, I guess, because I can agree with that. I agree with that, actually. Go ahead and comment and give us a like. If you disagree, comment and explain why.
Yeah, let us know why, man. I don't see the issue. It's all for love of the game, ultimately. People have passions in this life, and whether that's sports, whether that's collecting alcohol, smoking cigars, or being a part of a family, it all comes down to the same thing. It's your passion, and you can judge whoever you want in this case. But hey, I'm a LeBron fan. Love me, hate me. I'm a sport that guy.
Good, I love it. Loyalty is key. So there we go.
So not a lot of that in this world, but
there's not a lot of loyalty in this world, and that's why I like you, and I'm happy you're my brother-in-law.
Cheers for that.
Yes, sir. Let's go ahead and talk about the basketball player we were referring to.
Okay.
And show the camera. There you go.
All right. So this is a Luka Doncic card. It is luckily his rookie card. It's on a higher end product called Fresh Paint. And in my mind, he's my second favorite player. He's just a wonder to watch. He reminds me, like, with his fluid nature and like the way he plays, it's like half speed almost, but he makes it look so easy. He's not the fittest guy. Half the time he starts the season and midway through, he's a little less out of shape than he was before.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, especially last year. That kind of got floated around with all like ESPN and everything.
Right.
They kind of like definitely analyzed his weight, but this man, I think, from a popularity standpoint, I think he's going to be up there for sure. It's definitely a card that I plan on holding on to long term. Not necessarily just for a PC, but I think the value of it's going to increase. Again, we talked about COVID, the year of COVID, a couple of years.
Say 2020.
Everybody had a lot more money back then, and we was getting the COVID check. So
don't say that word too often because we might get hit.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
It's okay. Say 2020.
2020. So in 2020, the sports hobby, and I think most of everything, it's a hard subject to breach, obviously, but a lot of people had money to spend, myself included.
Everybody.
And that's really where
crypto.
Yeah. That's where my love of the hobby kind of just like
blew up.
It blew up, I was able to get a couple things that I got involved in. And, that's how, the helmet stuff and the card stuff really happened for me. This card, the way I came across of it's a little different. I was able, Panini, if people are familiar with cards, the redemption process, they failed me. Whatever. But I got this card in the interim, so I'm okay with it. But Luka, I love him or hate him, but that man can play some basketball.
Luka, what's his last name?
Doncic. Everybody pronounces it a little different. I say Doncic.
Doncic?
Doncic. DONCIC.
It got colder because now I can see my breath.
My hands are cold. And
I'm wearing the Stindl jacket and t-shirt.
I got the leather on.
It must be like,
I'm here, by hand.
It must be like 32. No, it must be like 29 degrees right now. Check it out. It's freezing out here.
Watch it be like 40 and we're just being little babies. It's 41. No way.
Okay, so I'm
we're
a California
out here a little
guy.
Longer than we were before. So.
Yeah. We've been here for quite a while.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Now I want to talk about the rookie cards for baseball.
Okay.
And I just got a card, Tyler Glasnow.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to review that with your card as well. Give some differences, and then we'll go back to Luka.
Okay, so I kind of mentioned to you before, when it comes to cards, some people collect, again, players are interested in, maybe this long-term becomes a player that you just follow.
Right.
And you collect him specifically.
Right.
Or if he becomes part of a team, like you mentioned, that you just want to follow long-term. The card market is all over the place, just like the sports memorabilia market is. But when it comes to cards, there's different products. Baseball in particular has their own brand of things. Topps being like, one of the biggest ones, obviously. But to compare cards, when you're looking for a card to collect, a lot of times people will collect and then have them graded. Because they become slabbed,
right.
like this one here. encased in a card holder, so it protects the card long term. But
Right.
more so, you kind of get a better grasp of the way people are going to value it. So if you look at the Luca card, we'll ignore the card itself, but just specifically look at the grading process. Hopefully they can see that. We'll show it a little later.
Yeah.
But for example, this card came back a 9. I was hoping for at least a 9.5 or a 10, obviously, because the value changes at that point. But if you're going to compare these two cards, for example,
Let me show up. Who's this?
This is Ronald Acuna Jr., obviously a pretty big name in baseball.
Hopefully you guys can see that.
Snagged a couple of his rookie cards on auction. So the biggest thing you're going to look at, again, you're going to collect a player that you think might long-term, evolve into something big in that sport. Acuna is still big, obviously, but these cards, I haven't graded this one for a reason. You should just show this one, right?
Yeah.
So on camera, I mean, if you pause the video and you zoom in, you'll notice the card. You can see it here, kind of floats to the right a little bit.
I did not notice that because I'm not a card collector per se.
So
He pointed out it definitely is shifted.
Yeah, I mean, so it's definitely to the right. So unfortunately, from a grading perspective, I'm going to lose a lot of value on that. And the corners are good. The edges are good. The surface, with the card type it doesn't have a lot of flair. It's kind of basic. So, I mean, it doesn't have anything shiny on it. It doesn't have anything floating across the side of it like some of these other cards will.
Right.
Pretty basic rookie card here. Still a rookie card. Still has value in that it's a higher player in a rookie card status. Now, if you look at your card, it still floats a little bit to the right.
Let me show the camera.
Yeah. Not as
go.
dramatic as my card.
Yeah.
But it definitely floats just a hair to the right. You might lose a half a point for that. I mean, your corners for the most part are very good. Your edge is definitely good. We talked about the surface as well being a grade. You won't be able to catch that on camera. It's all about the angle and the lighting. Right. The good thing with grading is if you know enough within the hobby, to send it off for subgrading. And they give you an evaluation of the card prior to submitting it, because submitting it becomes expensive. There are a couple graders. You got PSA, you got Beckett, being two of the topper end ones. But
question with that.
Yeah.
So if I ever have the opportunity of getting my my Tyler Glass now, sending it out to get graded and getting it in this nice framing where they grade it. This is a 9,
it's
right?
called a slab. Yeah.
Slab.
Yeah.
Slab. Should I try and see if I can get it signed first before I do that, or should I just go ahead and get it graded?
I would get it. I mean, if you're truly wanting to keep the card, I would get it signed. I mean,
And then get it graded?
Yeah. So the autograph grading process is more natural when it becomes a product release signature as opposed to, getting it signed secondhand. They likely, what they'll do, they'll authenticate the signature. They won't grade the signature necessarily. I don't know that they do ultimately, knowledge-wise, but they'll just say, okay, it's an authentic signature, and they'll grade the card specifically. So like, as I mentioned, your card floats a little to the right, not the end of the world. It's maybe a half a point deduction. Your edges are good. Your corners, they're maybe a little bit on one corner, just a tiff, enough to maybe, lose a half a point. But again, if you send this to somebody that subgrades cards, they'll likely clean the card for you, the surface, so you don't lose any points there, assuming there's no big gashes.
Subgrade meaning having them clean it before you send it out to get graded?
Correct. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe subgrade's not necessarily the, like a pre-grading more than anything, I should say. So again, they'll evaluate the card and let you know whether or not it's worth even having graded.
Okay.
Meaning, like, if you don't really get a 9 or higher, unless you're keeping it long term and you just want to protect the card, it's not necessarily value wise worth it. So say you get your card back and all of a sudden it comes back an 8. You have the option to maintain that if you're comfortable and you don't really necessarily care about the grade and you were more specifically wanting to protect it with the slab. The option being that you could crack it.
What does that mean?
Literally crack the slab and pull the card back out.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very technical way to do it,
Got
so
it.
you don't damage the card. Pretty common nowadays because people are looking for that 9 or higher, hopefully a 9.5 or even a 10, but the likelihood of that is somewhat low with the way that some of these cards are handled. Besides the point, maybe you crack it, you say, okay, let me put a little bit more money into it, especially if it's a higher ended card, and have it pre-graded, pre-prepped necessarily for the grading process. Maybe they clean the surface. They could, in theory,
I didn't know that.
some of them might be able to fix the corners.
Wow. I'm gonna have
but
to do
there's
that.
a risk with that. Sometimes
mess up the
maybe they
card.
mess up the card. Yeah. I mean, but there's so Beckett some people say is a little more harsh with grading. PSA, you have a higher chance of getting a 10 or even a 9 because they don't really do half grades, whereas Beckett will do like a 9.5. So
Right.
the difference between a 9 and a 10 is pretty dramatic. You know, as much as you say you look at it and it's supposed to be objective, some people, you know, subjectively look at it. So like example, this card, you see that top right corner?
Yeah.
It kind of folds over a little bit. So I lost a lot there. You know, the corners being my biggest issue is at 8 and 5, whereas I got 9.5 for centering, 9 for surface, 9 for edges. So there's a lot that
Do you
goes
think
into
my card
this.
would get a 9? Probably not. They clean it. I only have that one little corner.
The surface, I mean, I didn't look enough at the card outside of its
Let's say the
packaging,
surface
but
is okay.
if the surface
It's
comes
good.
back at so you to get a 9.5, I'm pretty sure you have to have at least 3 9.5s and a 9, if not 10s and then like a 9. So your surface, assuming it gets cleaned, in my eyes, I didn't really see any issues. The one little corner tip in the centering, you know, as long as nothing goes below a 9 and you come back with a couple 9.5s, it definitely, in my mind, would be a 9. And, you know, don't take my word for it. I'm not an expert. I'm an enthusiast. And with that enthusiasm has come a lot of experience, you know. So,
But you make a business out of it.
yeah. I mean, for sure. So
I would say professional to some degree.
to some degree, right? And your card is a nice card. It is numbered. You know, as far as the product goes, I mean, it's Topps, but I don't know what Topps product it came out of.
I'm
Museum
getting a
edition.
Carlos Rodon Yankee pitcher
Okay.
card coming into redemption signed. So should that come in autographed? I mean, not autographed. Should that come in high like quality?
So
if they
typically,
had
if
it-
it's a redemption, so I don't know if we.
Yeah, let's talk about redemptions.
I don't know that we
Jeez,
grabbed
the
any
wind
yet.
is killing me right
Yeah.
now.
So, you know, this card we're just using an example. So it comes in a slab, right?
Right.
Typically, redemptions, depending upon the quality or the value the Panini or Topps puts on that card, it might come already in this, and it might come in what's called a one touch, which is, you know, from a collector standpoint, you can buy these retail easily, and it's magnetic. A lot of times they'll seal it, especially from a redemption standpoint. Almost all of mine did that were high end, you know, high end being like, you know, a couple $100s in value.
Mhm.
So in theory, you know, the shipping process, no matter what, it'll come protected, and what we call a top loader. It should be a sleeve at minimum. But if it's higher end in value, if it's got an autograph or, you know, a high end product, it should come in a one touch that's sealed like with a sticker. You know,
Okay.
So
You made a face when I said Carlos Rodon. Do you know him?
I made a face because I was trying to think of who he was.
Oh, I was like, well, he's
that's
injured
because you
right
said
now.
Yankees, right? So
Oh, you're not a Yankee fan. Yeah.
I'm an Orioles fan.
Orioles
I,
fan.
you know, I hate everybody, but it's cool. We had a good year this
You got a
year.
Cal Ripken Jr.
I do. He's, you know,
You want to
coming
show
over.
it?
Yeah, I'll show it.
I have his autograph, by the way, on a baseball. But I got it when I was a child, and the problem with that is it faded for some reason,
Mhm.
and then I think I put my fingerprints on it.
Yeah, baseballs are funny. Fingerprints show up. There's different types of baseballs, but whenever you hold a baseball, you should probably anything really that's signed or of
Gloves.
value should have gloves on. Yeah, I mean that's. Why
I didn't
they
know
run.
that as a kid.
That's
I have
why they-
Sean Green. Sean Green was a Dodger.
Okay.
I have his card signed, and then I have someone from the Angels that I can't remember off the top head. He wasn't Hunter. There you go.
Okay.
Hunter, the outfielder. But that's it.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
these cards they're not signed from the product release. They're signed secondhand. I actually purchased them from an auction. So, for example, this Cal Ripken, you know, not necessarily a rookie card by any means,
Show him a little bit.
but
You can see it.
from a collector standpoint, these are nice to have. I mean, the value more so that comes from them is their signature, and you know, some of these older players, they don't have a lot of cost built into their autographs, so it's nice from a collector standpoint to say, okay, I have a Cal Ripken Jr.
Right.
signed card. I also have a baseball at home as well, but I mean, these again are just, you know, they're older names.
And he's got a pennant too. I got you a pennant
Thank
at
you
a
for the
vintage store here in Georgia somewhere.
Love it. So, you know, we got Willie Mays, we got Mark McGuire, we got Cal Ripken. Mark McGuire being a little controversial, obviously, with this issues with the league, but
Yeah.
Still, again, from a collector's standpoint, these are cool things to have. You know, to say that you have a card signed by these guys is pretty awesome. I have a couple
Cool.
baseballs that I definitely didn't want to bring, so I wish I had because they would have been fun to show off on camera.
It's okay. You brought a lot.
Yeah, I
Brought
got
a
a
lot of
Yankee
good
one
stuff.
that signed No, I shouldn't say I hate the Yankees.
Well, yeah, why do you have a thing against the Yankees, dude?
Well,
I love the Yankees.
The unique thing about baseball and basketball, like football has a very strict cap, salary cap, I should say. You're not allowed to go above it. Whereas baseball, you have the luxury tax. You're able to work above your budget.
Yeah.
And baseball is even worse. I mean, you can buy a team, so to speak, and the Yankees, notably for decades, bought players. And,
don't you think the Dodgers are now the Yankees?
after
we got Yamamoto, they got Tyler Glass now, they got Shohei Ohtani.
And
I don't know who else they're gonna get.
And I don't want to downplay, anything. Obviously you can. You in basketball, you had, or even football, because you had the Eagles with their, their wannabe dream team, and that floundered big time. And basketball, you have teams that are trying to make like a big three, because that's the thing nowadays. You don't have pure superstars. The idea of one man running the show and winning a championship, I think, unfortunately, rest in peace. I think that died with Kobe. I don't think there's a player right now, even LeBron, that could carry a team all the way through and to win a championship.
That's why I don't call him the GOAT. You do, but I don't.
I think basketball has evolved. As much as people like to say Michael Jordan grew up in a more physical era, the amount of superstars
is wider now.
There are more superstars. Yeah. There are more physically gifted players
now
in sports across the realm than there were back then.
I think a lot of the same thing with Babe Ruth. Like people knock him, because he was a great player, but there's some things about him that wasn't that great. But
do I think
the guy ate hot dogs? The guy drank alcohol.
It's completely different.
I mean, we now know that you're not supposed to drink when you're an athlete. You're not supposed to eat crappy food. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to get sleep. You're supposed to get all these, masseuses and all the science behind it.
You have to take care of your body nowadays, and that's what you can really credit LeBron for. I mean, this man is playing in his late 30s, and he's still dominating.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still, AD aside, he's still the best player on his team, and in my mind, outside of stats, he's still a top 5 player. Like, people pay to see LeBron.
Right.
That's what I'm saying when I say, like, the moment he leaves the league, like,
you think
it's going to change.
Viewership's going to go down?
Oh yeah. I mean,
unless Luka pulls through for you.
I mean, there's a lot of rookies that came in this last draft or the last 2 drafts. Their names, a lot of people have crazy names I can't pronounce, unfortunately. But
I will say though, the NBA is falling though right now in terms of viewership because of the stuff they've been doing.
Yeah.
That we don't want to get into.
No.
Nick, I wish Nick was in here so he could chime in a little bit.
Yeah. But I mean, again, like, to go back to it, like, the idea that sports has evolved, not necessarily even from like a business perspective. It's evolved from a player perspective and the way that they're built. So MJ grew up in a physical era with players that aren't as physically gifted as they are now.
Yeah.
So the idea that Jordan or LeBron couldn't play back then, in my mind, is insane. I mean, this man is the most physically gifted player I think there is in the NBA.
I can agree with
from
that.
A body perspective, and the way that he's gifted and the way that he's handled and like been able to maintain his body is insane at his age too.
If Michael Jordan and Kobe were the same age today, who would be better, you think? Considering Michael would go through the whole science of the sports people.
Exactly. They didn't have that back then, right? I mean, they did, but not to the degree they do now. If these 3 players grew up in the same era at the same time,
I think Michael would take it.
I don't think Michael would have won as many championships as he did, or even back to back to back or whatever. Like, if you had a LeBron, if he played in this day and age with the player quality, even bench players are making differences now. I mean, back then you didn't have like 10 teams that competed on a regular basis. You had a superstar typically per team, and I mean, I just watched a couple snippets of like Magic Johnson. They had the big rivalry with the Celtics and Larry Bird.
Right. Oh yeah.
There's not many players that you necessarily can name, from that era that are in a big 3 scenario. And, I could be wrong on that. My take on sports, I'm more of a modern day sports enthusiast. The past sports outside of Michael Jordan, like, I didn't necessarily grow up watching him. When I grew up, and became in love with basketball was because of LeBron.
Yeah.
And then No, I watched the Heat pre-LeBron. I was a fan of like Dwayne Wade, and then you had Shaq come on the team, which was fun, obviously.
That was cool.
I had a friend, Keith, or have a friend rather, I should say, that he's a giant Kobe fan, and we argue all the time. It's hilarious.
He likes Kobe over.
I
agree with him. I like Kobe way more.
But Kobe wasn't even the best player on his team when
he wasn't. Yeah, that's true.
Who was the best player
of the team?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Shaq.
Oh, you're talking about back in the day.
Yeah, when they won all the championships.
Shaq was better.
Shaq, yeah.
But he was a better leader, though, Kobe.
Well, he was the name on the team. I mean, Kobe has that, again, Mamba mentality. Like, he can take over a game and win you a game. And that's the toke on LeBron is, like, everybody says, oh, who's going to have the ball for the last shot? Like, I mean, if you really want to get stat padding and you look at, like, a career, LeBron, I mean, he's up there in terms of like clutch shots.
Right.
It doesn't matter if a shot is a 3-point, a long range perimeter shot, or if it's a layup or a dunk. A clutch shot to win a game or tie a game is a shot. It's a point. You made it. LeBron's up there with that. So I think that the clutch factor is what everybody talks about when it comes to LeBron and Kobe. Like, they don't think LeBron has the clutch factor because he passes the ball. But if you're
what is the clutch factor?
Ball in your hands, 30 seconds to go.
Got it.
Down a possession, down 2 points. Who's gonna get the ball and make the shot to win the game?
But Shaq didn't have that. Kobe did.
Well, I mean, Shaq is in the paint. I mean, it's different. Shaq is the most dominant center to ever play the game. Like, it is what it is. There's no comparison in my mind.
Okay, so I don't know much about the NBA. I don't watch football. I only watch baseball. And as of recent, I mentioned from the beginning of this podcast, like when I started it, I stopped watching baseball about 10 years ago.
You got back into it.
I got back into it about 6 months to about 7 months ago.
And I really, being an Oriole fan, growing up an Oriole fan, baseball wasn't giant for me. I was more into football. That was me and my dad really bonded long term for that.
For football?
And my grandfather.
That's cool.
We always football and hockey were more dominant because, I mean, it was easier to go to games with that. I mean, it's just something we bonded over.
That's good.
So, baseball aside, I mean, it's unfortunate, but I would consider myself a bandwagon fan when it comes to baseball because I don't celebrate the Orioles long term because they're notoriously bad. They obviously had a good season and they got knocked out. Doesn't matter even if they had a good season.
So who do you follow besides the Orioles then?
From a baseball perspective, I follow whoever beat the Yankees. No, I mean, baseball, it's like, if I could name a sport specifically that I'm less involved with, it would be baseball. But the value of cards with baseball is still there. I mean, I still follow it because I'm an enthusiast. Again, I got more involved this year because the Orioles did so well.
And it sounds like your son might become a baseball player.
I mean, I'm not going to argue with that. So the thing about baseball that I like, right? So
if I have a son, I want him to play baseball.
I mean,
I played in community college for a short second.
Sorry, I don't understand.
I didn't ask you anything. It's okay. But baseball's nice because you think of injury. And the way that baseball is built, I mean, you have farm teams, you have the ability to kind of work your way up into the program. So that's what's nice about it. It's not like the NFL where it's like high school, college, NFL. I mean, you have overseas and that kind of stuff, but it's like arena football. It's different with football. Basketball and baseball are unique, and even hockey. I mean, they have lower leagues that you kind of work your way up and be developed in, which is nice. But
that's cool.
Back to baseball, back to the Orioles. The way that I think, and the reason I respect the Orioles this year so much is because you look at a team like the Yankees
and the Dodgers, please,
and the Dodgers that are
nowadays
notorious for spending money and having this crazy cap or cost for their or payroll, whatever you want to call it. You have the Orioles that were bottom 2 in terms of the cost of their
it's pretty bad
team. And they did so well. And what's bad with the Orioles is they typically develop these players, but there's not enough talent surrounding the player to win.
Leave.
So then they leave and they go to other teams. So you look at like Machado, man, that guy was good, but he, from a player perspective, I can see getting upset. I can see becoming somewhat of a drama queen within your franchise because you're not winning, but you're a star within the league, but you're not getting necessarily credited that because your team is not succeeding.
Right.
So then you want to move on. And I hope the Orioles long term they're able to develop these players the way they are and hold them.
Right.
And surround them with talent. After this year, maybe, the owner, I don't know, in terms of finances, maybe they, invest a little bit more money and kind of strengthen the lineup, so to speak. But that's why I think baseball's kind of unique, because you can kind of have,
it's the best sport, dude.
They had the money.
It's the best sport.
What was that movie? The Moneyball?
Moneyball was great.
That was a classic, Brad Pitt. But
good. Well, I want to end it on a business note.
Yeah.
So one, name the name of your Facebook group where you do all the breaks, but two, also there's a business partner of yours.
Yeah.
You love the guy. You guys are buddies.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between you two, and you guys realize that difference, and you were able to say, okay, you're better at this thing than I am. I'm going to take this aspect because I'm better here. If you can give some advice to people that want to start a business, maybe that realize I'm better here, my business partner's better here, and let's go take that route rather than having like an ego trying to cover everything.
Yeah, I think most of the breakers rather that I'm aware of, selective a few, they typically have a partner, whether that's because, you need somebody to help invest,
right.
You need somebody to bounce ideas around with. But, ultimately, like we kind of discussed, this started in 2020 for me. We had, the virus that went around. I actually hurt my back as well, so I was out of work. So I actually, I had to have a hobby. I got involved with it, thankfully, from, Josh, and it kind of exploded from there. I started breaking like mystery boxes and things like that. And the company reached out to me, gave me free product. I kind of bolstered their social media page a little bit. And then I had Matt reach out to me and say, hey, you have
your business partner.
Yeah, Matt. Love the guy, brother in my mind. He reached out to me and said, hey, you have enough of a following, let's make our own page. And it kind of exploded from there. It started with cards, then it kind of developed into the helmets, more the memorabilia side of things. But right away, I was the face, so to speak, with the cards, and then he has naturally progressed as the face of the company. And, give credit where it is. He's done great. He's actually created an actual company within what we call Straight Fire, which is our break page. And right off the bat, I can say he's made more connections than I have. I'm more behind I enjoy the money end of it, and that sounds greedy. I don't mean it in that sense. No, I think if I had
every business requires money to be.
I don't mean it in that way, but I like the numbers. I like the computer. I like typing. I like figuring out okay, this is for this break we have $35,000 to spend. This is what we're spending. This is the profit range. Figuring out what our shipping is going to cost, what the material cost is going to be. How much we have to pay this person to run our breaks in terms of like our randomizer. So that that's where I get involved with it. And I like that end of it.
So is that why you guys switched? Because you saw the realization, sort of, in the terms of like the face, him being the face, you being more on the background. Because to me, the way I see it is, if you guys were to create a big team employees, you would be either the CFO or the COO, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Operations Officer, and then he would be maybe the CEO.
Yeah, and
because the CEO requires a lot of communication with other groups.
I mean, you have to be willing, from a business perspective, to acknowledge your strengths and your weaknesses.
Right.
He was able to make connections within the helmet realm of things, like with our Chrome builder,
right?
And that kind of, whereas within the hobby, like we're known for our Chrome helmets, and I give all the credit in the world to him because he was able to make that happen with, Chris Macier is our builder guy. He does all of our Chrome work, and from I give the credit again, with the ability of the page to kind of explode a little bit more so because people were drawn to the Chrome end of it. And then we've evolved into going to signings, and most of them being up north because he has more of the connections with the people running the signings. So I definitely give all the credit to him, from that end of things. I don't think either of us can do what we do without each other. I have perfected the way that we do our money end of things.
Right.
And we're unique from most break rooms, and we're not going to name names or bash anybody out by any means by this, but I definitely think our profit margins are probably the lowest amongst any break room because we definitely strive in maintaining quality.
Right.
Quality within the break, meaning like, say we have a 35 helmet break or 35 box break. You're walking away if you win with a helmet that's going to have value far exceeding what your spot cost would be. So, not to get too much into the breaks, we're limited in a bit of time here, but straight fire as a break room, we definitely strive.
That's
to
what you
bring
run, straight fire.
Straight fire, yeah. So if I had my hat, I'd wear it right now. But I definitely think from a break perspective, compared to other break rooms that we see, we definitely feel like from our end of things, we bring the heat, is what we kind of say. I mean, it's kind of corny, but
Bring the heat,
top
straight
to bottom,
fire.
no matter what, we may have one or two bad helmets, and when I say bad, I just mean it's still going to be a Hall of Famer. It's still going to be a notable name, but in terms of the value of it, it's not going to be a Tom Brady. Nobody can run an all Tom Brady series at the box cost that we have.
Right.
There's a lot that goes into the breaking end of things. And, if I could give any advice to you, if you were to jump into this, whether that be as a, purely as a player, then I would say just kind of know your names, get more involved in sports. Not everybody's going to have the value of Tom Brady. In fact, nobody has the value of Tom Brady. Patrick Mahomes will be the next biggest name just based on that. And even he doesn't have the value of Tom Brady. So don't expect to get rich with this. It takes time. It takes commitment. You can't just start a break room overnight and expect people to jump in it because you have to have a following.
Right.
So, I mean, that with the podcast, you have to have
It takes
an audience.
time. It takes forever.
It's not an overnight thing. And despite that, there's a lot of people that during the 2020 realm got involved in this and they died out real quick and they got frustrated. They don't necessarily have the viewership or the people that are playing, and that takes time. And we've been doing this for almost 5 years now.
Wow.
And we still get frustrated time to time
Right.
because we see that we're not struggling by any means, but we're not filling necessarily as fast or as fast as some of the other rooms, but we know what we bring it may be better.
Right.
But we're straightforward when it comes to breaks, and we don't like to have a show, so to speak. We keep it purely about the quality of the helmets and the signatures.